Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another brand new edition of Catching Up with a series, which is a side project of the Hoots podcast, which you subscribe to right now. Anywhere you get your podcast from, it's just truly Josh Lopez. Make sure to follow me on Twitter at Josh Lopez Media. I am alongside a man of many talents, a good friend of the show, Mr. Ray Flores of MLW Triller, PSB on Fox. This dude's all over the place. One of the best voices in combat sports. Ray, how you doing, my brother?
I'm great, Josh. It's always awesome to talk with you, man. Congrats on all your success. It's been great to see your development. I love reading your work. You do awesome stuff. Love the podcast as well. So honored to be with you today.
Absolutely. We're coming off the heels of a fantastic season finale of MLW Fusion, which airs weekly on The Zone, starting on Vice this Saturday at 11 Eastern time. Just go check it out. MLW's been king, but since its resurgence, this new era of MLW, it originally started back in 2002. Ray, I know you've been a wrestling fan for a long time, but as a fan, tell us a little bit about the experience of actually not calling the action in the ring in professional wrestling. I know you did some stuff for amateur wrestling recently with the Big Ten, but tell us a little bit about the experience of being a pro wrestling fan. Now you're calling pro wrestling matches. How about that?
What I love about it, man, is that I want to thank, first of all, I want to thank Court Bauer for bringing me on. He's the head of MLW, the CEO. And I love the vision that he has, and also working with Saint Laurent, who I've learned a lot from in the booth and working with him and just the entire team. The roster is fantastic. I mean, I think it's one of the best young rosters in all of sports entertainment. You know, when you look at the names and you look at what they do, the athleticism, the physicality that is involved,
Right.
I love what they're doing when it comes to, you never know what's going to transpire. But what I gather is that what's in that ring, bell to bell, that is the most important thing. The other things on the side, that's important, but it's what's in that ring that is the biggest and most important thing to MLW. And it reminds me of a prize fight. I've been around a lot of big championship fights over the course of my career. Been very fortunate to do so, knock on wood. But to transition with MLW and to get that same feel, I'm like, man, this is awesome. And it's pro wrestling and it's a love of mine. Before I became a boxing fan, before an MMA fan, I was a pro wrestling fan as a 2 and a 3-year-old, because I grew up in the late 80s, early 90s. And that was just such a big era for professional wrestling and sports entertainment.
You know, the biggest compliment I could pay to you and especially everybody at MLW is the fact that, especially for someone like myself who's been part of the wrestling media now for almost a decade and covering a lot of different wrestling promotions. I've seen promotions come and go. I've seen a lot of hype and hoopla around other new promotions. The great thing about MLW is that you guys stick to your own guns and worry about what you're doing. And it's really cool to cover a wrestling promotion that knows their identity and sticks to it. It's not worried about what's going around their circle. You guys do a lot of great stuff in the ring. It's fun. It's a challenge sometimes to have a hybrid style of wrestling where you have a lucha guy going against an MMA guy, let's say like Laredo Kid against Tom Waller. Yeah. Like this thing about that, trying to visualize, typing that out in the transcript. It's a fun brand to cover. And again, props to Court and everybody to sticking their guns and form an identity, because I think that's the most important thing with professional wrestling, especially for these promotions who want to be alternatives to WWE. You got to stick to your guns and what you are as a brand.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, Josh, because I remember last week when it was Dominic Guarini and Ross Von Erich.
Right.
And it was very much MMA style, and then you had just different parts and ebbs and flows of the match. So I essentially went back to my MMA days of when I call fights and was calling it, like an MMA fight, because that's what was transpiring in the ring. So you never know what's going to happen. You get different styles. It's not just, how you hear, oh, that's a certain style or that's what that company brings to the table. MLW, you get a lot of physicality. You get moments of matches where they're just going toe to toe and they're boxing. Then you get the MMA style, and then you get the luchadors and the aerial acrobatics. I mean, especially with what we see with, Myron Reed and Leo Rush, who tore the house down last night. And then you get, your big, your Mats Kruger who are out there and being big and physical and monsters. It's just everything mixed in one. And Court Bauer and the entire team, they make it what is MLW. And then you got, Jacob Fatu, who's a big man, but moves like a cruiserweight. It's unbelievable, like a middleweight. I mean, I am having so much fun, and I hope the fans are enjoying it. And one thing too, Josh, before we continue, is one thing that we try to pride ourselves on. If you're a brand new fan of MLW, what St. Laurent and I try to do is we don't alienate the fans that are watching every week. But if you're just watching, you're telling your friend, hey, bro, you should check out MLW, and you watch, we want you to get hooked right away.
Right.
And we want you know, like, hey, if you missed last week, this is what's going on, or this is what's important as to why this match is so significant.
Let me pick your brain a little bit from a broadcasting point of view.
Yeah.
The premise of my website, ProWrestlingTranscriptions.com, is to give like a theater of the mind perspective of what if I was calling a wrestling match without giving the storyline points and the back and forth stuff that you and MSL will have, but like literally blow by blow, play by play. But for you, like it's one thing to call standard base Greco-Roman top wrist locks and Fujiwara arm bars and all this stuff, but also the ability to call these unique gimmicks that are attached to like Spanish flies or stuff like that. Tell us, everybody, like how you go about the memory bank they have inside your head when you're trying to call out the moves during the matches, especially these fast-paced sequences. Like you mentioned Maya Reed and Leo Rush. That's probably the best MLW match I've transcribed this year outside of Low Key and Tom Lawler for the Opera Cup. The match is insane, but from a broadcast standpoint, like how hard could it be sometimes to catch up with that?
I mean, sometimes you just kind of have to let the action speak for itself. And just the one thing is, Josh, and this is how I am with St. Laurent, is I am a fan first and foremost. So when you get my, oh my goodness, sir, what a move or whatever, I'm literally giving you my authentic reaction because I'm blown away by what I'm watching. And one thing is I'm working with the staff and really focusing in on, all the moves and making sure that I'm correct with what the guys are doing. But sometimes the action is so fast paced, you can't go and try to catch up. You just have to let it be and then your authentic and genuine reaction. The one thing that I'm big on in anything I do, whether it be MLW, whether it be Triller, whether it be PBC on FS1, whatever it is that I'm doing in broadcasting, I'm big on being authentic. What you see with me is what you get.
Right.
You see me on the street on a Saturday night in downtown Chicago, that's how I am on the air no matter where I am.
We came off the heels, like I mentioned earlier, about the season 1 finale. We saw the big reveal of El Jefe, Dario Cueto, aligned with Azteca Underground. I'm not going to ask you about giving anything that you may know about this upcoming season for MLW, but I know you're well into the game and the success of Lucha Underground and Dario Cueto as a character. Tell us what Dario Cueto could bring to this brand coming up in July 10th.
I think it's going to shake things up in MLW. I tell you that, Josh. I mean, listen, that guy's a mastermind. I think he has been one of the most polarizing characters and figures in sports entertainment, professional wrestling. And that goes back to the mind of Court Bauer, because Court is always thinking ahead and is just so brilliant at what he does. I mean, Court was a rider with the WWE in his mid-20s and learned from so many greats, Dusty and Bruce Pritchard and all these guys. So for me to be able to work with him and understand what his vision is and what he's trying to do, along with MSL and the entire staff, I find myself to be in a very fortunate position because I'm learning from all these brilliant minds in sports entertainment. And bringing in Dario Cueto, I didn't know about it until it actually happened, because I don't like to know what transpires until it does, because I want to give my reaction. I'm like, oh man, like the same reaction you gave, you put a GIF out there and I'm like, business has really picked up, especially after that match. I was trying to get my, breath, back, because I lost my mind during that match. And I'm watching the monitor. I'm like, oh my gosh, like Dario Cueto's back. Like, this is nuts. I can't wait for Philadelphia, July 10th. at, the 2300 arena. I think that's going to be very special. And you're really, the draft is going to be coming up for MLW. You're going to get some things that you're going to be like, oh my gosh, they're really doing that. You're going to get a lot of that in this upcoming season.
Ray, I want you to expand a little bit about the on-air crew that you've been able to work with at MLW with, of course, Saint Laurent, but also Alicia, too. Very, very talented backstage reporter and what she does in the hustle, the grind. I think all three of us could relate from that point of view for how she carries herself. Tell us a little bit about your experience to get to work with them. Obviously, it's a little different in parameters because of the pandemic, but how fun has it been able to work with Saint Laurent and Alicia?
Well, Saint Laurent is so good. This guy he understands sports entertainment, professional wrestling. His moments are he has great timing. He understands, the athlete so well. And I gel with him and I vibe off of him. And we have a good chemistry together.
Yeah.
I get excited when I work with him because I never know what's going to come out of his mouth. And I get to react on that. And you get my true reaction. Alicia Etude, man, is she good. She is so good. And she gets better every single week. She understands the guys. She asks poignant questions. She gives these wonderful reactions because that's essentially her. She's not playing a character. What you see on screen is how she is off screen. And she understands and loves professional wrestling. That's one thing. All three of us on the air, we all love professional wrestling. I can't get enough of it. Are there times where I wish I could watch more? Yeah, but I have other duties, going on in my career. But all three of us, we love professional wrestling. We have respect for it, and we understand the history. So those are all three things that all three of us are on the same page about.
We saw last night the announcement about the MLW draft coming up next week. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and what could we expect about this draft?
All I can tell you is expect some surprises. And I'm curious because I don't know what's going to happen. And I'm going to be watching just like how you guys are. And I'm like, okay, hey, this is someone new to the roster that I'm going to be able to be fortunate to call. So I can't wait because it's almost, we had the NFL draft last week. As you know, I'm a diehard Chicago Bears fan.
Yes.
And when moved up to get Justin Fields, I'm like, oh my gosh. And that's how I'm going to kind of be with MLW. I'm like, oh my gosh, we got this person. Like when I saw Dario Cueto, I'm like, oh yeah, oh man, can you imagine how it's going to be like for Azteca Underground in the new season? So I'm just as excited as you are, and I can't wait, man.
I was thinking about this over the last couple of weeks. You are more than anybody are well known about prize fights in the world of boxing and MMA. When I think about prize fights in professional wrestling, Alexander Hammerstone and Jacob Fatu is that to the T. And just from my point of view, where I transcribe matches, it's something I can't wait just to document and try to give that match justice. And from your point of view, is that one of the biggest prize fights that are out there in the landscape right now?
100%, because man, oh man, Hammerstone has been on a run. He's been the champion since June of 2019. He's the only national openweight champion that they've had. He won the title in Milwaukee. Jacob Fatu, that match that I was fortunate to call with Saint Laurent against Calvin Tankman was unbelievable.
Fantastic.
It was smash mouth, big guys going at it, crashing into each other. But then you got athleticism. Where are you going to find the kind of athleticism that you saw from Jacob Fatu and Calvin Tankman? Guys that are 300 pounds plus, moving like middleweights. But you look at the styles with Jacob Fatu and how big he is, how physical, how explosive, how he's agile. And then you got Hammerstone, who, when he picked up Mil Muertes and finished him off, I was blown away by, his power is on a different planet. There was a period where he had Mil Muertes on his shoulders and he was carrying him around. And I think he did a squat. I'm like, this guy's unbelievable. He's freakishly strong. And he has just dynamite in his hands. I know that Hammerstone, his star is rising exponentially. Mm-hmm. I know that's a fight that he wants against Jacob Fatu. Joseph Samael's trying to keep Jacob Fatu away from Alex Hammerstone. I think that fight is inevitable, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see a member of Contra step in the way to try to test Hammerstone. And if Hammerstone's able to get past that guy, then we go ahead and see that match coming up with Alex Hammerstone and Jacob Fatu. That would be, if that happens, when it happens, I can't wait to call it because it's going to be just sheer pandemonium.
You know, Ray, that's one of the fun parts about getting to cover MLW over the last couple of years is just when you think one thing is going to happen, another curveball comes out of another direction. And that's a big props to Court and the team that comes up with everything. And it's like, I like about MLW is like every week, the match cards, it's not the same, but you get something different that you wouldn't expect. I mentioned earlier about these different matches. Like we saw Gringo Loco and Larry Kid last night. That was a really interesting match that went out. Just from you, do you have like a preference in the style of wrestling that you like to call? Or do you like the challenge of, you know, here we go, let's have an MMA guy against somebody that does maybe a Ring of Honor or New Japan style of a match? What are your thoughts on that?
I love them all because it's when I look at, you know, when I get the card a week before, I'm like, man, this is what we got this week. I'm like, okay. And I start diving into the prep and really getting excited about it. So the one thing is that with MLW's partnerships all over the world, you get all these different styles. I mean, we had King Mo on a few weeks ago and that was different. And then you go and you get, Laredo Kid, as you pointed out. And then we got Dominic Arini and Ross Von Erich. And then we had that tremendous match with Tom Lawler and Marshall Von Erich. I mean, what an absolute war that was. And then you had, Myron Reed and Leo Rush. So I enjoy it all because it's like I love to eat, right? If I could, I just love to eat. So I used to love, before COVID, I used to love like buffets. When I'd be in Vegas and I'd go to buffets and you'd have like your steak station, you had your dessert station. That's what MLW is. You get a little bit of everything when it comes to professional wrestling. It's not like, okay, here's strong style, here's just luchadors, whatever. You get something of everything every single week on MLW Fusion.
We got a couple more minutes here with Ray Flores from MLW as we're talking about the season 1 finale that just happened last night on MLW Fusion. Go check out Myron Reed and Leo Rush, one of the best matches you'll see in 2021 so far. Ray, obviously you got your other side schedule you got going on with boxing and MMA. What else around the pro wrestling landscape has been catching your eye or things that stood out to you?
Well, I'll be honest. I mean, the run that Roman Reigns has had, especially with Paul Heyman, I like this edgier Roman Reigns. I think that it fits him. And I like the direction that they're going with him because the guy is physically something special. And he's explosive and he's powerful and he's mean. And they're sticking with that. When they tried to make him a face, it was like, this is disingenuous to the audience. But when it was at WrestleMania and he went ahead and did the concerto on Daniel Bryan, I'm like, that's a mean streak. And I like that because that's kind of like who he is. Mm-hmm. And he had a phenomenal match. So I like that. AEW, I'm curious to see. I saw that they were kind of potentially previewing Kenny Omega and Orange Cassidy. I know Cassidy's over Major. And I like how Kenny Omega was kind of dismissive of him. So we'll see what happens if Cassidy is able to defeat Pac next week and go ahead and they have that Double or Nothing. I like the fact that fans are coming back. I believe AEW announced yesterday that they're going to have full capacity at Double or Nothing at the end of the month. I think that's terrific. And I'm just excited about where everybody's going because I think that the more, the better. And I'm not one of those people that's like, I hope WWE doesn't do well, or I hope that AEW doesn't do well. I hope Ring of Honor doesn't do well. I want everyone to do well because it elevates all of the products. I love watching football every single week, Josh. And when I can, on Saturdays, I watch the Big Ten game when I'm home, which doesn't happen often, but I watch the Big Ten game at 11 o'clock Central Time, and then I'll watch it through Pac-12 After Dark till 12:30. So I'm watching 15 hours of football because I love it. The more, the better. Same thing with professional wrestling and sports entertainment. I want us all to do well because the more, the better.
Really quick, how excited are you for Justin Fields to be a Bear?
Man, I thought I was out. I thought that I wasn't going to pay that much attention. I was going to pay attention to the Bears, but I wasn't going to be emotionally invested. Oh, they got me back. They got me back for the next 5 to 6 years. And I'm, thinking about my Bears jersey that I'm going to buy and everything else, my Justin Fields jersey. I live maybe 1.5 miles away from Soldier Field. I can't wait for the home opener. Tickets go on sale next week. I'm going to be on my computer ready to go for that. I'm so pumped, man. I think this kid's going to be Russell Wilson. I haven't said this publicly, but I'm going to say it on your show.
All right.
I think that Justin Fields is Russell Wilson 2.0. I think this kid is going to be the next Russell Wilson, and he's going to lead the Bears to the promised land.
You got it right there. I agree with you. Also, Tevin Jenkins, the tackle they got the second round, reminds me a lot of Jacob Fatu and how he carries himself.
Yeah, you're right. Nasty. He even said, he goes, I got to keep my quarterback protected, and if I got to do things that are maybe not with the rule book, then I'm going to do it. Very similar to our champion at MLW, Jacob Fatu.
MLW returns for the new season on July 10th in Philadelphia, the old ECW arena, the 2300 arena. Make sure you go get your tickets right now at MLWtickets.com. Last thing, Ray, before we head out, me and you've had a good friendship over the last 7 or 8 years. Crazy how quick time goes by. But this from where you are right now with your career, what are you grateful for? What are you looking forward to towards the rest of 2021?
Well, Josh, I'll tell you this. I'm very blessed, and I'm blessed because I get an opportunity to work for some amazing people and amazing promotions. I've had so many people, my parents, my family, my friends, promoters all over the world, producers that have invested time in me, and I'm very thankful for them because I didn't get here by myself. I am the byproduct of hundreds of people who have given me an opportunity and given their knowledge and poured their knowledge into me. So I'm very thankful to them. And without them, I wouldn't be where I am today. What I have coming up in the month of June, I'll be calling the Teofimo Lopez-George Kambosos fight for a Triller Fight Club. I'm excited about that. July 10th, a new season of MLW. We get rolling in Philadelphia. What a rich wrestling city that's going to be. Can't wait to be there for that. July 3rd, Triller has another pay-per-view as well. I'm stoked about calling that one and just, doing PBC stuff and press conferences, and can't wait for PBC on FS1 to return. So a lot of things going on, man. Very fortunate. And you know what? I congratulate you because the one thing about you, Josh, and I love this, is that you hustle. You are a hustler, man, and you work your tail off. I mean, I love reading your reviews. I love how passionate you are, and I love the fact that you are no ego. Even though you've been busting your butt, you keep doing it, and you are so honest to the audience. Don't change anything about yourself because we need more people like you covering sports entertainment.
That really means a lot coming from you, my man. Honestly, I can't pay you enough for a comment like that because, learning from you and Hoodie back in the day, our guy Jonathan Hood.
My big brother, man. I'm glad you brought him up. He's my big brother. Jonathan Hood told me I got with ESPN in 2011. And ESPN Radio in Chicago, and Jonathan Hood helped to guide me and really mentor me. Jonathan Hood, without a doubt, is one of my mentors. I love that guy so much.
Yeah, he is the man. I'm so happy for his success as well during the morning show. Ray, man, the great thing about this, I'm glad to have the platform to cover the business like I do. It gets busy. I don't know how I keep up with the New Japan stuff, let alone everything that goes out the rest of the week. But I try my best to bring a different style of content where it's not like, I'm giving out my booking analogies. I never worked in the business. I want to work in the business. I'm trying to learn every day with each show that I cover. And hopefully sooner or later, one of these days, I get to work with you, my man. And thank you so much for taking time out of your day to come out, hang out, and talk shop with me. We got to do this again, man.
You're right, man. Absolutely. And you know what, brother? The one thing, too, and I want to tell the audience, is when you brought up New Japan Pro Wrestling, this is how much you're on your grind because I pay attention. I'll go to sleep during Wrestle Kingdom or whatever. I wake up and I'm reading your review. I mean, because you're up at 2, 3 in the morning till 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning. You're transcribing things. So that's how much you're on how much you love this business and you're on your game. So also social media, SBR Flores is where to follow me. SBR Flores. Josh, keep up the great work, my man, and look forward to talking with you soon.
Yes, sir. That's MLW's Ray Flores. I'm Josh, and this has been a new edition of Catching Up with right here on the Hoots Podcast. Talk to y'all later.